We'll call special city council meeting to order. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Ruth, did you have something you wanted to bring up?
No, let's go ahead and let Randy do his presentation, and then I'll do mine. Thank you.
Randy, you're up.
Well, thank you for this rather hurriedly called special meeting, made necessary because of the expiration of the contract extension between the City of Marion and Expedition Wind as of yesterday evening, I guess. Friday afternoon, I had a request from Expedition Wind for another extension to the sales contract, originally dated back in November of 2019 for the 828 North Roosevelt location and 2 adjoining vacant lots in the Marion Industrial Park for purposes of establishing an operation and maintenance center supporting the 70 to 75 wind turbines planned for the southern half of the county. Their offer is to extend the existing agreement to November 30 of 2020 with another $10,000 in non-refundable earnest money or down payment towards the purchase. Why are they asking for this, and particularly the length of time? Expedition Wind is currently active in 2 separate legal actions. The suit where they are the defendants is the reason for the delay in not confirming this contract. The last hearing of June 2nd, just last week, resulted in another 30 days of depositions, which would then require another 30 days after that for responses after discovery. The judge did allow the decision of the county commission to stand, finding against any claims that the required reports and processes were not reviewed or followed properly. The allowed depositions now are to be limited only to the bias or prejudice by any of the decision makers. The second suit that they're involved in for tortious damages, Expedition Wind is actually the plaintiff, and it would not impact the beginning or end of this project itself. So what's the economic impact of an operation and maintenance center for Marion? Based on the number of turbines, Expedition Wind budgets operating expense, or OPEX, and somewhere around $850,000 per year at this O&M center. That does not include parts or turbine maintenance plan from GE, who's the provider of the turbines, but would include a parts depot, labor to do whatever they needed to do, etc. In terms of jobs, Expedition Wind has declared there will be most likely 8 to 10 professional, about 40% of that total, and technical, 60% of the total, positions created immediately. They've committed that all of those positions will be above the national median wage. And if you remember statistics, you know that median is the red line they draw up where half of everybody is above and half of everybody is below. That median range today is $47,000. Presumably, these would all be new residents, as those skill sets really don't exist here in Marion right now. Typically, those jobs and wages would turn into 2 times spending for homes, all the local spending that would come along with that, household operations, etc., which conservatively could get us up to $1 million a year for this community. Even with the delays of the court actions, Expedition Wind continues in all the work required prior to beginning actual construction. They have been boring and core sampling at each transmission and tower site, compiling the RFP for what will be contractor selection, and finally the interconnection to Evergy's new Burns substation. I would be remiss if I didn't also share with you another inquiry that I had about the property. I know my meeting was May the 15th, so my math would tell me I was three weeks or so ago. I do need to communicate that inquiry to you, but I need to protect anonymity and not betray the Prospects Trust here. I did field an inquiry from a regionally based service provider who was inquiring about the building. The Flint Hills Cremation Society would like to establish a current centrally located crematorium. And even though my response to the inquiry was that the building was currently under contract and not available, I did take the opportunity to do a little fact finding. In those discussions, I learned that approximately $300,000 would be required to establish a crematorium in a building. That would be the actual procurement of the, I don't know, for lack of a better word, the burner. That would be required for CapEx to procure the equipment for startup. The target is for approximately 400 cremations a year. And at approximately $3,800 per cremation, that potential revenue would be about $1.5 million a year. However, in the conversation that we had, it became very clear that even though the cremation service would be here in Marion and regionally located for a number of different regionally based funeral homes, only the funeral home providing the entire service would actually be the taxing entity or collecting the sales tax, and that would happen at the location where the transaction would actually take place. Therefore, we'd be limited to the mortality rate of Marion County, and I don't know what that number is, but I know it's not 400 a year. The economic impact, I think I quoted you what the economic impact might be. They would like to consider a chapel or someplace for family to gather for memorials at the same time. So there would be potentially some visitors or clientele utilizing some services here in the city of Marion. And we can't disregard the utility usage. Clearly Atmos and the gas would be the largest provider, but we would also have three-phase electric in the city of Marion. Likely 2 jobs, FTE probably in the $35,000 to $40,000 range to operate the equipment. And their estimated time frame would be fall of 2020. So with that, those are the 2 offers that I bring to you this evening. Actually, it's one offer to extend and another inquiry, but you're certainly, I needed to inform you of those.
Under the current contractual agreement that we've entered into, it was non-refundable deposits, so in lieu of us marketing during that time frame.
Correct.
So the inquiry was made of you, we have not marketed this, have not.
I've fielded a couple of inquiries over the, past 18 to 24 months. And once the building became under contract, the initial response is, we have a contract on the building that's really not available.
Legal decision, no one representing the city can market this building
Correct,
until such time.
correct, until such time as we say that this contract has expired. And I believe I just read through the addendum really quickly again, and they're proposing that it be extended again, like he said, to November 30th, and we receive another $10,000 non-refundable, which I think makes the total would make the total about $20,000 that we have received from them. I don't know what the taxes are on this property, if that covers the taxes the city's paying, but
Taxes on the property right now are right at $10,400.
okay.
When was this contract first brought up with him? Last year, 6
Yeah,
months ago?
November, the contract was entered November 18th of 2019.
Okay.
But they gave us 5,000 in May.
Correct, to exercise their extension clause, they put 5,000 down last November. Then in May, when they extended or had to do
It's
the
backwards.
option,
It was May of 2019, we put
I'm
the first
sorry,
5,000 down.
that was the letter of
The
intent.
second
Yeah.
5,000 was in November of 2019.
But, did we have a purchase price for them?
190,000.
190.
Aren't there other buildings available that might be suitable, like the camper place that was in the paper last week about being possibly available, or
For the OE&M,
for the other place, not the wing?
for the crematorium.
Yeah,
Yeah, my feedback to the inquiry, was the Airstream location seemed to be perhaps better. The comments to me was the building was probably too big, but if it was available, they would have been interested in it. The other building that we talked about, and I don't know how well this is gonna fly with you all, but the Shamar office building is certainly there with a large warehouse-like space at the back of the building, could accommodate their chapel-like setting at the front. It is in more of a residential area, even though the area is zoned, help me with, I think it's general commercial. But, you know, the reality is there are crematoriums around the country in lots of different areas close to residential areas.
Did Expedition Wind request a lease purchase or an outright purchase?
Outright
Purchase,
purchase.
we're not financing any of it.
Okay.
I still see questions and,
I do, I'm gonna
okay.
address them, and then you can jump in at any time if I'm misinforming anybody.
It's not my, this wouldn't be my preferred activity at this time. I would much prefer to be closing the deal on the building and getting on with it, but they are hamstrung right now by the district court.
Thank you.
You have to share with Susan.
That's fine.
Okay.
We'll make it work.
I just have some concerns about this property. The sales agreement expired March the 17th, is that correct? That's what your notes said in February.
Well, not,
February
it was extended in February for not to exceed 120 days.
Who
Which-
did that, who extended it?
We did, council did.
No, I don't think so. In your notes in February the 24th, you stated, 120 days on the sales agreement is due to expire on March the 17th.
That was calculated from the November 18th date.
The 120
Incorrectly.
days.
It was 120 days from the February date that was appropriate. So
So
if I,
you didn't extend it, but when he counted the 120 days, he had the wrong starting date. He should have had it from the time that the first addendum ended,
Which would have been in November.
which would have been in March.
the
or
original
whenever
contract was
original-
in November.
Right, and then we extended it, and with your March, but then there was another chance to have another 120-day extension, and so the 120 days from March takes it to yesterday, so
So
that is when it would have ended.
So I guess I'm asking who extended it in March then?
There was an agreement that we said in our original thing that was done back in November by the previous council that said that they could extend it based upon the fact that they couldn't get financing for another 120 days. So that's what happened. So the original council passed it there and it was set for March, but in that addendum, there was another 120 days that they got, and that ended on yesterday. So you guys can extend it, but it was something that was done prior to your taking office.
Okay, I'd just like to draw your attention to what this building is actually costing us a year. The taxes on it is $10,397.86. Our loan payment is $8,519. Interest on the loan is $10,152. Insurance is approximate $845. This is a total of $29,913.86 that it costs the city to maintain this building yearly. The loan matures in 2033. And I'd like to see the property offered to Expedition, just purchase it right out and no extension of the deal. And that way we would get under that. So far, if we carry them through to November, we will have spent $60,000 on this building to get $20,000.
No, to get 190,000 and 2 lots off of our inventory. This building has been through 2 failed lease purchases that the city financed the individuals who defaulted on those. And we've ended up with this building
Well, this-
because of the lease purchase programs. that we
It's
have.
not gonna cost us any more than the $29,913.86 to put it back on the market.
Fees for commercial marketing again will kick in, whatever advertising, so forth you wanna do on the building.
I just think it's a shame to spend the taxpayers' dollar this way. I mean, I think we need to get rid of the building the quickest way we can. Whether it be
I share that sentiment,
just
but
offer it to them to purchase it right out, they're putting money everywhere else in the county. So why
Yeah.
should we carry it?
we've had those conversations, Ruth, and because of what I presented here this evening, they're stuck. So, they'd like nothing better to be here in the county and raising those turbines down in the southern part of the county.
Well, I just thought I ought to bring out those facts that it's costing us $30,000 a year to carry it. And last year for that $30,000, we gained $10,000 off the purchase price.
Expedition Wind has been more cooperative than I think most businesses would have, given all the obstacles that they've run up against. We have very few economic opportunities like this coming and knocking on our door. I understand there's expense in holding the property and moving forward. But when's the last time we had one like this? It was one up in North Marion County. It has been a godsend for the community, for the county, for the schools, for the fire department, for all those. We have the same opportunity here, and if we're the one hammering the last nail in the coffin to put this thing to bed, and they say, I'm done, it's gone, it's not coming back. We are running off business faster than anything's coming in. So personally, I'm in favor of working with Expedition, getting a business that would directly benefit the county. It's not a moneymaker to extend this contract, I understand that, but I think the benefits on the other end are worth it for the city.
Since Arlie moved in, how much interest do we have in that building? In the purchase,
Well, it was refinanced in 2012,
right?
okay, and that's where the current amounts are coming from. At the time that the refi, from what I can see, there was additional debt retired when they refinanced it, okay? I believe the initial, I don't wanna speak out of turn now, because it's so convoluted, it went through 3 different banks and defaulted to the city. And then was tried to the auction, which then sold twice on lease purchase. I mean, the original was $180,000, was the finance portion on the building. But then refied at 235.
In regards to this contract, did they close possibly earlier if they settle all of their issues?
yes, I think, David, I was a little taken back by the length of time for this additional request. But I truly believe that they're trying to give themselves enough time to make certain that all the court stuff is settled. So if you work through the math and you say they got notice on the 2nd of June that they needed to do another 30 days of depositions, and then that gets you to July the 2nd, if they need another 30 days for discovery after that, and then probably another 30 days to assess and get the judge to actually decide. In a perfect world, that could happen in mid to late August. And so they're willing to pull the trigger as soon as that occurs.
Okay. Answers my question.
Susan, could we ask your opinion on the amendment, where it refers to language in the base contract?
Are you talking about the amendment that we just got?
Just received.
Yeah, I read through it, I find that it would work, yeah.
Well, to the mayor's question, they can close on or before
Right,
the 30th.
right, so if they can come in and have a quicker closing date, then that is something that is no problem. Because I think you had already taken the stuff over to get title work, is that correct? Or it's just kind of sitting there, and that should be relatively quick to get, because there haven't been that many previous owners, and the city owns it now, so.
And Expedition has already completed the phase 1 EPA
Right. survey
on the property.
And I think there was just, is the problem that they can't get that certain kind of financing that they're trying, isn't there some sort of tax?
I don't know, the only thing that's been communicated to me is that they are not willing to step out until the court case is absolutely decided in their favor.
And they know that they can go ahead and go forward with
Correct.
it.
They're still renting the building downtown, though.
They are,
So they're spending some money.
thankfully.
It's helping them guys out.
Are they comfortable that they're gonna win the case?
I know, it's a roll of the dice, but
Yeah,
in every one of my conversations with those folks, they have been very confident that at the end of the day, they will win this argument. And they took some confidence away from last week's decision that, look, we're not gonna be deposing on process and whether or not people did their jobs correctly and everything. We're setting that aside. The only thing they're taking depositions on now by that order is whether there was a bias or prejudice in the decision making. So, that to me is, I hesitate to, in a public forum to say, but I don't think from my observations of everything that went on, there was any bias of county commissioners or county zoning commission or any prejudice in how they evaluated and ultimately decided.
I assumed that we wouldn't be looking at this contract if they were thinking they would be,
You're absolutely correct.
okay. Any other questions or concerns? Need a motion to approve it? I'll entertain a motion to approve this, amendment to the sales contract on 828 North Roosevelt.
I would so move.
Second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
Ruth, thank you for your inquiry and thank you for your support.
Okay.
No,
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the special city council meeting.
Well, I moved to end this special council meeting so we can get on with the budget.
Okay, we have a motion to